I am running for Congress, U.S. House of Representatives, District 2, and I am running because I got mad in 2020. COVID hit, and everything shut down. My kids' school shut down, they were shutting down businesses, and I was one of the original people out there on the in my town square with my sign that said, "Stop the COVID craziness, the cure is worse than the disease, we've got to get back to work." And my daughter's school, the high school shut down, all the schools were shut, and they kept telling us, "Oh, we're going to go back, we're going to go back." They were lying. And I knew by the time the summer rolled around, I couldn't trust them. So I took my daughter out of school. I said, "You're never going back to the public school again. They lie." I sent her to a wrestling camp in out of state because she's a wrestler, and she lucked out and found an amazing school. It's the #1 wrestling school in the country for girls, and she was in a good place, and I was really happy about that. But in the meantime, all of the businesses and all the other kids here in my hometown were suffering, and I organized protests and some of them, they got media attention, they went viral, and we were going to the Marin County Office of Education, we were going to the school board, and we were saying, "You've got to get these kids back in school, stop masking them." And then, horrifying, they were going to talk about forced jabbing them too. Yeah. So that was absolutely insane. So I also, parents all over the country were also realizing the indoctrination that was going on in the schools with respect to the anti-racist theory, critical racist theory, and the worst, the radical gender ideology. And I just want people to be aware that right now the American Library Association is okay with, and they actually want drag queens to read to your toddlers. The Biden administration is fighting for the right to chemically castrate your children and to censor you. And Gavin Newsom and Rob Bonta are actually protecting schools even if they change your kids' gender pronouns without your permission. So my daughter is a college wrestler, and I knew I needed to protect her from the possibility that a man pretending to be a woman who decided that he wanted to win at all costs bullied his way onto the college women's wrestling team. Now, I was ahead of the game. I was one of the first people that stood up and talked about these issues. I talked about them when it was difficult. And now it doesn't seem like it's so difficult. More and more people are talking about how we need to protect women's spaces. We need to have parents be involved in the gender issue. Yep. And the COVID jabs, as the list of deaths and illnesses gets bigger and bigger, people are really questioning that. So I talked about this when it was difficult. Now it's not difficult. And the reason, so it's very important. Leaders need to talk about the issues, and that's what I did. I talked about it when it was difficult. So California is in trouble, and 70% of Californians believe that when their kids are grown, they will be worse off than their parents. We have horrible inflation, crime, homelessness. It is out of control. And really, people are feeling they don't know what to do. They're feeling very just, what do I do? So we really, okay, so. Also, our country is on a precipice, and our sovereignty, our local control, our pursuit of happiness is being infringed every day. And the government is interfering with our lives every day. So I want to go to Congress, but I want to be the kind of person that I'm not going to come back and I'm going to say, oh, the border is still being invaded. and your kids are still being sexualized. And now we're $68 billion in debt, but you know what? We are all getting along great, right? You do not want that. You want to know that I'm going to go to Congress and I am going to fight for what is right. So, I am also a candidate that is being very transparent. I am putting everything I believe on my website, on Facebook. You will know if you go to my website what I believe about homelessness, the border invasion, the local school bonds, Humboldt's Measure A, and their horribly underfunded roads. So I am endorsed by the American Independent Party, thank you. I'm endorsed by the California Rifle and Pistol Association. I'm endorsed by the California Republican Assembly, the Marin Election Integrity Committee, Sonoma County Pro-Life, among others. I am a conservative, and I believe that conservative values are the best chance we have of restoring California and turning our country around. And in order to do that, we need new representation in District 2. And I am that representative.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thanks very much. All right, who has a question?
I have a question.
Yes, Nick.
You're very modest,
Thank you.
and there's things that people should know about you. You have an economics degree.
I do.
You learned a second language, which is incredibly difficult, and went through rigorous testing, and were actually entrusted to work in a bank in Europe,
That's
in
true.
Germany.
In Germany.
And I don't think very many people would be able to do that. And I suggest mentioning that at least, and here I'm mentioning it.
Well, thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Thank you for that.
What language?
I didn't know
German.
that.
There you go.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch, Fraulein.
Well, you know, I never actually became completely fluent. I had to learn it to work in the bank, and I actually went to Germany after I graduated from college to work in the bank, and I wanted to stay. But did you know that Germany actually has a really strict immigration policy?
Like us.
And if I overstayed my visa, I wouldn't have been able to work.
Almost
So,
all European countries have very
Yeah.
strict.
Yeah.
And getting.
yeah, and I was this close to being fluent in German too.
You know why? It's because they don't want you depending on their government to survive.
Yeah.
They want to make sure you
Right
can
concept.
sustain
In
yourself.
Switzerland, you're not allowed to buy land unless you've been living there for 10 years and are a citizen.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea.
You know.
Think what it would do for our housing supply.
Yes. Yeah, in California especially, we really need to acknowledge the impact of the illegal immigration, border invasion with respect to housing and in our homeless situation. Because
Absolutely.
we have so many illegal immigrants here, and they are using up our housing supply that could be for down and out citizens.
I got a question, speaking of illegals. How do you feel about anchor babies? If you come into this country illegally, and all of a sudden you have a child, now that child is a citizen. There's been a lot of talk about trying to change that. How do you feel about that?
So yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I had an interview with the Marin IJ, this was probably a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't televised, or it wasn't public. It was recorded but not public, so I can't really put it out there. They didn't give me the recording. But in the portion when they asked about immigration, I actually made the extremely definitive statement that anybody who has come into this country illegally should not have birthright citizenship. So we need to end the practice of birthright citizenship for illegals.
Yes.
If you are legal, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But illegal, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They committed a crime. I agree with you completely.
Yes.
And it's finally now, I think, being discussed because of what's happened now.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And Frank.
I got multiple questions, but to first follow up on that, where do you stand on chain migration? that was brought in by Ted Kennedy back in the 60s? And then how would you have voted on of the recent bill that's before Congress that have funding for the border, the Ukraine war, and the Israeli war?
The continuing
That's
resolution.
loaded.
Yeah.
So are you talking about the
It's
continuing
on
resolution?
continuing resolution.
I'm with you, it's okay, it's fine.
So I'm very, very clear that I do not believe we should be sending money to Ukraine, okay? I'm actually a proponent of a government shutdown until we
Yeah.
get what we,
It never shuts down.
and I don't know if you remember way back, I think this was under Obama, when we had the government shutdown,
Yeah.
and they were actually going around and cordoning off like the
The
park.
National
Yes.
Park.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, and it was kind of like, it's like pre-COVID, right? Because during COVID, they're saying
It
you
was a
can't
test
use
case.
the swings in
Yeah.
a park, right? It was a test case, right? So it's absolutely outrageous. What does hurt is when our military people don't get paid. But even under a government shutdown, they get paid. I think maybe the Coast Guard doesn't, but I actually support our Coast Guard group. They're trying to get them included into getting paid during a government shutdown. So those people that are protecting us should be paid. But do I need somebody manning my park? No, I don't. So I'm very strong on this, and that's why I say I am not a go along to get along politician. I'm not saying we need to heal the divide. I'm not saying we need to all get along. I'm saying at this point, what has that gotten us in the last 30 years? Radical gender ideology and $34 trillion in debt. So absolutely not.